What screams you weren't loved by your parents as a child without saying you weren't loved by your parents as a child? They can't mention any achievement without balancing it with a mistake. Your whole family sees you as nothing but a punchline. The only reason you fear them outliving you is that they'd use your funeral as an excuse to humiliate you even further in front of people who actually cared. Yeah, this happened at my best friend's funeral. His childhood was crap. Abusive mother and stepfather really messed him up and he took his life. She made a whole show of his funeral and wake. Painted herself a sin and him a broken child. I was shaking with rage the whole time. Stealing. My sister was always told she was too expensive to take care of. Now she literally will steal even if she has money in her pocket. That's fascinating. I've had 2 girlfriends who were able to cry completely silently. Not just a few tears, but full ugly, bawling your eyes out crying, with absolutely zero noise. The first one I knew about her past, but the second I was completely blindsided. She didn't speak about her past, but had said that other than occasionally arguing with her father she has a good enough childhood. When I saw it, it absolutely sent chills down my spine, and I immediately knew. When I later asked her about it, and mentioned that people only learn that out for quite narrow reasons, the floodgates opened. I learned more about her childhood than I was ready to. Constant need of approval by an authority figure. For example, trying to constantly please your history teacher. That kind reminds of your dad. So every time he grades you well you feel like you accomplished something, even though he's just your teacher, not your dad. He won't listen to your problems or be present. He's just grading the tests. It's awkward when you realize you act like that towards your boss in your 30s. Finding it difficult to believe other people love you, or that if you disagree with them in any way they will stop loving you. Cannot disagree with anyone under any circumstances. Read this whole thread up to here and first time seeing this mentioned, but wow. Totally, you could not make an alternative point, let alone straight up disagreeing. Gaslit or knocked into eternity. Not being able to self-validate. No one taught you how to be confident and sure of yourself. Poor decision making, indecisive. Insecure attachments. One thing that I know I did a lot is have an extremely exaggerated personality because of how bad your social anxiety is. You constantly think everyone is judging you, so you have this carefully calculated sort of facade. You seem funny and spontaneous and extroverted, easy to talk to and friendly. Basically you become that quirky weird kid. You try so hard to be funny and likable, be just weird enough but in a sort of funny way, so that people will like you. Then you get home and are absolutely drained because you really have no social battery, but force yourself to have one because that's what your carefully crafted personality calls for. You seem spontaneous and funny, but really every move is carefully calculated. And now I'm in a stressful situation and the exaggerated personality becomes even bigger, and I'm too drained at the end of the day now. It's gotten so bad recently, and this makes dating so anxiety inducing too and draining. Having a huge void in your life where no matter how much love you receive, it's never enough and you never feel like enough, or so I've heard. I am so confused. My mom loved me, still does, but so many of these things apply to me. Moving silently, avoiding conflict, apologizing for even doing the right thing, the correct thing or otherwise, and always feeling like I have to explain what I did to justify it. Overanalyze and overthink everything. Ruminate on every mistake. Although we both have ADHD, which makes me wonder if that's not part of it all. When you marry into a family and you completely shut down at family gatherings because you don't know how to insert yourself into conversations because this family actually loves each other, and all you know is that you were told that no one wants to hear about you and they only want to talk about themselves, so you have to be the giving person, but then feeling sad that no one took the time to ask you about yourself. Feeling bad for feeling sad or lonely, but thinking you also deserve it because you must be selfish if you feel negatively about people just not asking about you, even though you put so much effort into talking about them that you know good and well they likely never had the opportunity. Censoring your own art because you had to do that where you grew up, but if someone stumbles upon your art and praises you for it, you freeze up because you have no idea what to do about it. Working extra hard to get your parents' attention. Getting good grades, making their favorite food, etc. Just to get acknowledged that you two are part of the family and you are also important as well. Pawning me off on other family friends to go on vacation without me, but especially on holidays. Sticking you with the bartender at parties, so they can teach you to make them drinks at home. Thinking a conversation or get together went well when it didn't make me cry. Having a parent have a set amount of time allotted to you. Well, it was nice talking, but it's been almost 25 minutes and so you have hit your time, when you only speak to them every few months. Having to spend every other weekend with my dad, part of custody agreement, in an office, usually having to do work for them there, then having to cook, clean, and stuff, not age appropriate chores. Getting dropped off to volunteer at places, because you're too young to be working yet. Then always having a job once you're old enough to help pay for your own food and clothes. Having a parent hit you in front of their friends' peers. In private is bad enough, but another level of embarrassment. Not being allowed to watch much TV, play video games, have friends over or go to a fiends. Limited phone time. Not being allowed to eat drink anything when they weren't around. So sneaking food. Having your copy of the house key taken, alarm code changed, and not allowed over without permission. No birthday or Christmas presents over about 5 years old, but not allowed to be with other parent on Christmas. Being separated lost on a mountain for over 4 hours with family not noticing. I had to find an adult to help me get to where they were, like ride a bus to another location. I thought most people had to just suffer with heat stroke or sun sickness growing up. Not realizing cars had AC for the passenger side. There was a dead rat on my event for over 2 months, and nothing was done about it. Having to sleep on the couch after got rid of my bed, so there could be a home office. The only sheets provided were from the dead neighbor, who died in bed. Could have done without knowing that. They all forgot my birthday 1 year, when it ended between my fiance when they were caught cheating, and I having to wait 2 weeks before I could come home to stay. Only allowed to stay 3 months, to get other arrangements made. Having a parental unit tell you multiple times that they never wanted kids. Having them yell at you for not understanding how to do math problems when you're just learning them. Having them talk more to the father of your child than they do to you. Praising themselves for your accomplishments that have nothing to do with them, and any hobby or activity is because you take after me. Overdoing every special occasion for my kids to make dang sure they never, ever, look back and feel unimportant or unloved. I take pictures for every important day, say I love you often, and spend months leading up to birthdays and Christmas very carefully choosing what will make them light up, making things, and planning the day. We play what if I you, insert crazy thing like being a crocodile and smashing the house, or stealing and crashing my car or something, which ends in giggles and my children confidently saying I would still love them. Compulsively apologizing for minor non-existent transgressions, just so people don't lash out at you. Perceiving every compliment as backhanded. Eating as quickly as possible because you know someone is gonna throw your plate on the floor and force you to finish eating it. Well, apparently and based in my experience, some things are bad teeth health at very young age. Irresponsible because it was never someone that checked my homework or other responsibilities. Don't knowing how to talk with adults or your own parents. Knowing who is coming and where is that person just with the sound of footsteps or other small details. Trying to find a fatherhood or motherhood relationship with other people, even with friends. Apparently don't knowing how to take compliments is another sign. And not always, but usually. Having lots of things, toys or similar stuff is another sign. Hide emotions and feelings, or eventually don't been able to show them or have difficulties for it. You are lonely and selfish because your parents never were there to help you. Be more mature and rational for your age. And I don't want to continue. I am getting sad while typing this. Jesus, check off a lot of those boxes myself. It took a lot of hard work and saving every penny to get away from my dysfunctional family. I've been gone 32 years now, and no money to get out was the only reason I stayed as long as I did, and I've never been back in the last 32 years. I work in schools and I find often kids will purposely get themselves into trouble to get attention from the staff because they're starved for attention at home. It really bothers me when a teenager self-injures and people say, oh, it's just for attention. It's not a real problem. Because if a person is so starved for attention that they cut themselves to get it, that is a real problem. Please, for the love of God, laugh at my crappy jokes and listen to me talk in circles for way too long while I try to kid myself I'm making an interesting point. Couldn't be me, definitely super not me for sure. Overly defensive about everything. Always trying to defend yourself for things you know are in the right. That is, my room is already clean, why are you even yelling? Or stop telling me to do things I already do. I only know this because I'm always put in situations like this and allow other people's words to have power over me. I feel attacked XD. Not liking or loving yourself. Being able to identify people by their footsteps, the sound of their car outside, how they move around the house, etc. Yes, people who stomp all out footsteps upstairs terrify me. Getting depressed every single birthday and Christmas, BC. No amount of well wishes and gift giving can fill the empty hole inside. When your father doesn't wish you happy birthday but you're too mentally exhausted to remind him, even though you know he knows it's your birthday but just couldn't bother to say happy birthday. Constantly feeling like everyone has a problem with you even if you have no reason to believe such thing. I have great roommates and they're some of my best friends. But at times I feel that they hate me. I know they don't. I have no reason to believe such things. But when I wake up I sometimes believe that my friends absolutely hate me. In response to these emotions I tend to work very hard to try and get them to like me. I'll buy them food or surprise them with things I know they'll like. It eats away at me, but even more I tend to believe everyone I meet for the first time hates me. Constantly I need people to tell me they're not mad at me. I need to be reassured. It's a dreadful feeling. On point here. Having the inability to touch a leather belt or extension cord without having heart palpitations, trouble breathing, and flashbacks of every dreadful weekend you had to go to your dad's. Having your siblings' sports trophies take up a whole room in the house while your academic awards are left in storage. This hits hard, Sedge. Being genuinely confused when people write about how they called their parents when they were in a jam or needed advice. You were born in this country. You figure it out. Being shocked when a kid says how much they love their parent and they mean everything to them and the parent is loving and affectionate. Says something cruel, insensitive, inappropriate. Geez, it was a joke. I was trying to lighten the mood. You're just oversensitive. I had a friend make stupid jokes while rushing me to the hospital while I was actively miscarrying. He pouted when my husband told him to STFU and drive, complaining he was trying to cheer things up a little. A few months later I was at his apartment while his mom was visiting. She came up to me and said, "Oh, I heard you had another miscarriage. Too bad. I wouldn't know what it's like. I got pregnant just thinking about it, and me and all 4 of my kids were perfectly healthy." I stared at her in shock and my first thought was, oh, I see. The Ashlery is genetic. Apologizing when asking for help. My father would do something for my sister and I, and not big things but like just the basic necessities, and would make us feel bad because he spent time and money on things for us, even though he wanted visitation rights and got it from a judge. As a teenager I stopped taking anything from him. Thankfully I have an amazing mom. She's always been one to help and give her time because money is always tight. So even though I grew up helping people because of my mom, I had to learn how to ask for help because I didn't want to made feel like I was burden and less than for even asking. I'm 31 and even today I'm still working on it. My father said some pretty awful things to us. Blame shifted towards you rather than the younger siblings, and still not owning up to realizing they were wrong after you move out. Brotherly responsibilities includes raising your 2 other siblings while also maintaining a good school life, while they work, sleep, not take care of their own freaking children, minus buying groceries. Being able to handle angry or unkind people, but being suspicious and not being able to handle someone being kind to you. This one is one I am working on right now. Your first reaction is to lie or obfuscate when asked. Even as an adult you need to catch yourself every time you're pressed about the most insignificant thing. It takes you until you're almost 30 to realize, hey, there's nothing physically keeping me around this person. I can just leave and not talk to them. It was a super freeing feeling though, like graduating high school. That pain will still be there but I won't add on to it, so it's something. My siblings never lied about me hitting them, ever. So if they said I did then I did and nothing I said made a difference. Plus being the only child who moved out to be homeless willingly and not one person tried to help until after they noticed all my siblings did was lie and create drama. I'm an only child, never lived with either of my parents, just my grandfather for 20 years since I was 2. When I was 12 I finally lived with my father only because he was tired of getting phone calls from CPS because I was being abused by my grandfather. My father abused me as well. Both him and his father told me at 18 I had to get out. Well, I was kicked out at 17 and my father now shows my nudes around to people to justify why he kicked me out. I was not loved, and there is no denying it. Don't you wish you got a real degree like your brother? I literally have degrees in mechanical, manufacturing and nuclear engineering and tested nuclear reactors for a living. He's some sort of VP for Cox Communication and lives next to a few Atlantis Braves. Growing up with bad teeth, finding out some parental influence could have changed everything. Also, realizing in your 20s that there are no pictures of you from your youth. Really? Vivid flashbacks of stressful events with your parents, but no therapy person. That isn't PTSD. How silly of you. It's just extreme flashbacks, right? Feeling profoundly unsafe and overcompensating for it by controlling everything around you because you crumble when faced with any amount of uncertainty. I've had a kid in my previous class who I'll call N. N was a pretty smart kid. He could study for 1-2 hours and easily. One day, we got the marks back from our weekly tests, which were added in final marks. So it's pretty important to get good marks. Now when his paper came, his marks probably 20/25. 22/25, something like that. The kid started crying in the class. When too much pressure is put on the kid, they end up become perfectionist for their parents' attention or to avoid beatings, or at least that's what I think. Mind is running, trying to be prepared for the worst outcome, feeling guilty for everything. Outside humble, inside a volcano is ready to burst. Downsizing every achievement, thinking I could do better. Not knowing what it's like to be living without anxiety, never ever feeling safe. Being jealous of children who are loved as an adult, always trying to do more at work or around the house so you deserve being treated like a human. Sound of boots making you freeze. If someone says my name I jump because it was always followed with pain, either physical or emotional. Being quiet, knowing how to get as small as possible. Not having hobbies because as a kid it was your job to cook and clean and be quiet. Fear of being abandoned and seeking reassurance for plans even though you've already checked with everyone on the time date. I just want to make sure you haven't changed your mind and I'm still invited. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.